There were undoubtedly many factors that pushed the United States to declare war on Germany in April of 1917, which officially marked the entrance of the U.S. into what was known as the Great War. Throughout the conflict, Germany and U.S. President Woodrow Wilson had attempted to keep America out of the war. Germany didn't want to have another powerful enemy, and Wilson wanted to focus on matters at home. Later, American and German strategic implications eventually led to war between the two powers. The two main causes for the American entrance into the conflict was unrestricted submarine warfare and the Zimmerman telegram. Although the U.S. was originally neutral, most Americans held sympathy with the Entente powers, which consisted of Britain, France, Italy, and Russia. Germany and Austria-Hungary were seen as the aggressors in disturbing world peace, as Austria-Hungary had declared war on Serbia, which eventually dragged other nations into the war. Germany used a strategy known as the Schlieffen Plan. The German plan was to go around French defenses on the Franco-German border by invading through Belgium. Germany had committed many atrocities in Belgium during their invasion, hurting American public opinion on Germany. Germany had also been the first nation to use chemical weapons on the battlefield, in violation of various international treaties. Additionally, America and Britain were excellent trade partners throughout the war, which strengthened their relationship. The first event that significantly soured German and American relations was the sinking of the RMS Lusitania. Before the sinking in February 1915, Germany announced that it would begin its practice of unrestricted submarine warfare. Unrestricted submarine warfare was the submarine tactic of attacking unarmed civilian, merchant, and neutral ships without warning. The sinking of ships loaded with goods was meant to starve Britain and counter their North Sea blockade. A few months later, on May 7, 1915, the Lusitania was hit by a German torpedo and sunk, killing 128 Americans. Civilians had been warned that traveling during a time of war was dangerous. After talks with Wilson, Germany agreed to end unrestricted submarine warfare, only attack ships loaded with contraband, and allow civilians to evacuate the ship before the ship was sunk. On March 13, 1916, Germany initiated intensified submarine warfare. Attacking ships without warning was allowed, but all missions had to be conducted in a specific war zone that wrapped around the British Isles, including present-day Ireland. The Germans thought that with the establishment of this war zone, it would deter ships headed to Britain. The Americans were not made aware of this war zone, however, so when the British SS Sussex was attacked in the English Channel carrying American passengers, Wilson threatened to break diplomatic ties with Germany. This resulted in Germany taking the Sussex Pledge, which was the ending of intensified submarine warfare. By the dawn of 1917, Germany was becoming more desperate to resume unrestricted submarine warfare. Any other method of submarine warfare was too slow and energy-consuming to be effective. In January 1917, the German Navy and Army convinced Kaiser Wilhelm II to resume unrestricted submarine warfare in order to relieve German armies and starve the Allied forces. A total of 69 submarines were operational for unrestricted submarine warfare at the time, and the Germans estimated that 600,000 tons of shipping could be destroyed each month. They also estimated that Britain would starve and be forced to surrender within 6 months. Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare on February 1, 1917. In retaliation against Germany's move, Wilson cut off all diplomatic ties with Germany in order to make them undo their decision, but this did not work. It was Germany's thinking that the U.S. would not be able to mobilize and send their troops over to France quick enough before the Allies surrendered. The United States only had about 125,000 active duty personnel at the time they entered the war in 1917, which was far less than any other nation's army in the war at the time. This was about the size of the Belgian army in 1914. Unfortunately for the Germans, by the end of the war, over 1 million Americans would be sent to fight in France. Between February 1st and March 21st, 1917, 7 American merchant ships were sunk, further shifting American public opinion against Germany. Germany was weary that if they resumed unrestricted submarine warfare to hurt the Entente, the United States would declare war on Germany. German officials created a plan to harm and stop the United States if they went to war with Germany. They planned to delay American troops from entering France with the Zimmerman telegram. This telegram was written by Arthur Zimmerman in early January 1917. It laid out instructions for Heinrich von Eckart, the German ambassador to Mexico. Mexico was to be informed of the resuming of unrestricted submarine warfare against the Allies. An alliance was to be proposed between Germany and Mexico, but only if the United States declared war on Germany. Mexico would be promised Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas if they joined the war on Germany's side, all of which were former Mexican territory. Mexico was undoubtedly much weaker than their northern neighbor, so to make up for this, Germany told them that the Allied forces were on the verge of collapse and promised military and economic aid. The German goal was for Mexico to delay American troops from arriving in France. They thought they would have enough time to crush the Allies with the relief of unrestricted submarine warfare and before American troops arrived in large numbers. Germany had one problem when sending the message. Germany's international cables had been disabled by the British, so they couldn't send messages directly to the Americas. They had to use the transatlantic cable based in London. This made it risky to send out telegrams to the Americas, as the British could intercept them. On January 16, 1917, the Zimmerman telegram was relayed out from Berlin and sent to Copenhagen. From there it was transmitted through London, Washington, D.C., and finally arrived to the German ambassador in Mexico City on January 19th. As Germany began resuming unrestricted submarine warfare, British codebreakers deciphered the Zimmerman telegram and showed its contents to the Americans. After receiving the telegram from the State Department on February 24th, Woodrow Wilson was shocked and ordered that all American merchant and civilian ships be armed with weapons and defenses. Less than a week later, on March 1st, the Zimmerman telegram was publicized. At first, many Americans thought the telegram could be fake. After Zimmerman himself admitted it was truly from Germany later that month, support for war with Germany dramatically increased. Wilson had campaigned on the slogan, "He kept us out of war," during his re-election run in 1916, and had toiled to keep the United States neutral. This was shown by his willingness to negotiate with the Germans on the topic of unrestricted submarine warfare. This time, he could not ignore Germany's aggression and his people's call for war. He saw this as an opportunity to end the authoritarian regimes of Germany and Austria-Hungary and to spread democracy throughout the world. Another thing that concerned Wilson about the outcome of the war was that he thought if the Central Powers were victorious, Germany would upset the balance of power, dominate the European continent, and control the seas. If the Entente were victorious without American support, Wilson believed they would divide the world among themselves and leave out American interests. Wilson thought that an Entente victory, with the United States involved, could preserve further world peace. The continuation of unrestricted submarine warfare, along with the Zimmerman telegram, sparked the entrance of the United States into World War I. Ironically, as Wilson put it would be a war to end all wars.